Gentlemen, somebody give me
Brian,
a fist
Pat.
pound. Somebody give me a fist pound.
I don't know where my camera is. There we go.
There you go. Guys, it is an honor to have you two on tonight.
Thank you. I mean, I'm kind of
well. Go ahead. We'll pull it
flattered.
again after on Twitter.
Say that again, sorry.
I said we'll pull it afterwards on Twitter after we pull each other's hair out and see it.
Yeah.
Is it still an honor?
Oh God.
Okay.
No, I mean, the pleasure's all mine, Brian and Pat. Thanks so much for having us on. And yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. Let's have a good podcast tonight. I'm super stoked.
I think John's having some connection issues. Is there? Yeah, he's here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Check.
John's in.
Oh yeah, I'm back. Woohoo!
In the
Are
Arctic.
you back, Pat?
Yeah, I had sound issues because it's that type of day, man. And thanks, Chrissy, for letting me know. I knew I could see my bar not moving this time. So absolutely honored to have you guys on. People already probably know I'm huge fans of you guys way before it's podcasting, your podcasting history. Going back to my actual Twitter baby years when I just started, I was admiring all three of you actually. Even Brian, you're in there, man. I know we've been potting together for a while, but yeah, maybe that's a good chance to reappreciate that the fact I'm potting with freaking legends tonight, man. I love it.
That's a good way to put it, baby Twitter. Like, you guys were definitely like inspirational to me whenever I first started my Twitter account. It's, I don't know, and the fact that I could see John's face instead of Bergevin's face on the.
Not these days. That's not going to happen again.
Oh my God! You can't even get a picture with him in Habs Garib, I guess.
Well, I mean, my love affair with Bergevin ended in dramatic fashion. You know, so it is what it is. You know, these things happen.
I put it this way with Bergevin: his cuteness got old real fast. The cutesy wootsy answers and yeah.
You know, it wasn't even that, Brian. You know, I mean, I just think that he got 10 years. I mean, you know, people do longer prison sentences and get more out of, you know, like, you know, it's like, it's, you know, in this, you're given a chance, and, you know, I mean, he almost got us a cup. You can't argue with that. But no, I mean, it's on to new and hopefully better things, but we'll see, right? So,
do you think John? Go ahead, Pat.
I'd take a quick smart-ass reply to Arpin Basu anytime, honestly, from Bergevin. Any given day, I'd take it. Give me a 15-second soundbite. I'll take it. I'll take it, man. I won't lie. I loved it. All of it. All of it.
Everyone did.
We've gone over this a couple times, John. Do you think Bergevin had a few months on the other side of that Stanley Cup run because he made it to the Stanley Cup Finals? Do you think he had suitcases packed for him if he didn't make that final?
Had the Habs lost to the Leafs, he would have been gone immediately.
I think so too. We've talked about this a couple times.
I think that may have bought him a few more months, regardless of whether they had made it to the final or not. I think the fact that they made it to the final meant that they couldn't fire him, you know, immediately after that ended. Obviously,
going to the final was strong enough to actually draft Mayu right after, man, and still get that job safe.
Honestly,
that's crazy, dude.
I still can't believe they did that. Honestly, I'm still stunned by that decision. But I mean, I don't think that helped. I don't think it would have mattered. Actually, I think Bergevin's days were numbered anyway. That certainly didn't help. But it was a smokescreen because you know I think.
Speaking of which.
Yeah.
There he goes.
It was a smokescreen. Yeah.
Who do you miss, Bergevin or Ducharme?
Who do I miss more?
That's what Matty is
Phelan.
asking. That's what Matthew's asking.
Oh, that's hilarious.
If I had
Man,
to
how do you even
choose,
answer that?
oh, I know. I mean, I think Ducharme was one of the worst, the worst things to happen to this organization in a long, long time.
I've never seen a snake grow a third head. You know what I mean? That's what that was to me. It was like just the same. It was another head on the old snake. You know, that's what I've said it a couple times. The two moves I thought that Bergevin made that he had to do, but ultimately was part of his undoing was signing Carey Price to a $10.5 billion contract. Had to do it. I'll admit that, but it was part of his undoing. And firing Therrien to hire the exact same coach in Julian. Like, no GM's going to survive 3 coaches, right?
I mean, it was just a smokescreen. Every time he hired a new coach, it was just a smokescreen for more of the same. And I think if players were frustrated, it was because of that. And Julian bought himself quite a bit of time because he's a nice guy. He's loved around the league. And, I mean, this guy was just failing. And then a week later, you hire him just because, he's French-speaking and he's well-known. And we're just recycling coaches at that time. I think the most refreshing thing about the current team is we hired somebody that's never coached in this league before.
Yeah, that's a breath of fresh air for sure.
And he comes with that, that history of his, the Hall of Fame history. Like, he was in the Hall of Fame, Stanley Cup winner. Undrafted, yeah, underdog, undersized.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like everyone that comes through Montreal is undersized, so who better to coach them than someone who was undersized his entire career and went to the Hall of Fame doing so, right? So
Suzuki mentioned something about his teaching pedigree and that he's such a rookie coach and he can't believe how much he's getting across to the players, like in a teaching role, which is cool.
I mean, don't get it wrong. Marty St. Louis sitting on the bench was teaching a whole fucking team already. He's always been that guy, right? He was inspiring throughout his career. Vincent Le Cavalier went on here saying it. He was coaching me already on the bench the moment he stepped in. He was a natural coach for sure, no doubt there. A bit like Joël Bouchard is.
I think it was John Tortorella in his Hall of Fame speech. When they had a ceremony for him there in Tampa, was saying that he was such a pain in the ass because he would always be asking questions and always wanted to know more and have suggestions and this and that. And so he's very much engaged in the game. And I mean, he's a student of the game, and now he's teaching that or passing it on to the younger kids there. So, I mean, it's a great move. It's refreshing compared to, Claude Julien and Dom Ducharme, what we've had to go through in that defensive-minded outlook. But it's an update, This league is going a different way. It's not. I mean, look at tonight, 9-5. If you score 5 goals, you should be winning a game. But we lost it. And
you'd be celebrating giving wings away at home.
But it's just bizarre to me. Like this defensive-minded game is completely. I mean, this is not the first time we've let up, 6+ in a game this season. Hopefully it gets better. I mean, but the only team in this league that has any sort of defensive-minded play is Boston right now, other than LA, I guess, but they're doing the trap. So, but anyways, I'm just blabbing on here.
That's the show, man.
Playing LA when we played them against the trap, did you notice that we did the slingshot to try and get through that trap, the neutral zone trap? We did it like 5 times in the first period.
We were actually breaking through that trap really, really well, and it surprised me how well this young team was doing that. And not just a young team. I mean, these guys are in Laval, 30-year-olds from Laval, and but they did really well. Like, I was like, how are we breaking the trap? We couldn't break it for years. Nobody could break it for years. And here we are.
Yeah, New Jersey built a career on it for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep.
Minnesota was the other team I was thinking of. I mean, I don't think there's a team that has been in more 2-1 games this season. They're very defensive-minded, but for the majority of the league, it's about scoring, and that's what fans want. And Marty St. Louis completely completely, fits the bill for the Habs there.
I remember not long ago you would have one, maybe two puck moving defensemen, and then everybody else would have their role in the team. Now it seems like you need two or three at least, north south immediately, right?
The, one of the problems with this league is they don't reward that defensive defenseman, right? The Norris Trophy is always given to some guy who has, the top points, and that's been going on for how many years? Like decades.
Right.
And it's not about defense; it's about scoring. It's all about scoring. So Shea Weber was never going to win, even though he put up some points. Shea Weber was never going to win the Norris Trophy. But then you had Ray Bork, who did it all. He's great defenseman, put up the points and everything. So you don't see guys like him that often anymore. So, yeah.
I have a question that I like asking people right now. What keeps you watching this team at this moment? Like, how do you find the energy to put some of your very rare spare time in life onto this fucking spectacle we have right now? Like, it's a
I'm
question
not.
like us. Good
not.
answer. That's an awesome answer.
I'm not watching
There you go.
this season. It's that simple. I mean, and I don't blame the Habs for it. I blame this league. I mean, part of the problem that I've always had with the NHL is that it rewards failure, and this whole lottery ploy it's a gimmick. It's simply to churn out entertainment and viewers and to get people excited. It's ridiculous. It still rewards some of the worst teams in the league every year in and year out, and that leads, unfortunately, to seasons like this where you have an organization like the Montreal Canadiens who are perfectly willing. I'm not saying that they're losing on purpose. I'm not saying that. And I want to be very clear about that. It's not what I'm saying, and I'm not asking for that either. I'm not pro-tank because I don't believe that teams go out of their. I don't believe teams lose on purpose. Okay, that's the main thing. Do I think that they will make moves to maybe make it a little easier for them to lose? Sure. You trade off assets. Maybe you sit players that might have a slight injury or what have you. And could that potentially lead to a team having trouble winning games? Yes.
100%.
So I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but to lose on purpose, which many of our fans seem to want the Habs to do, because if it's not what they want the Habs to do, then I don't know what the hell they're complaining about every day when it comes to the Habs winning or not winning games. So I don't believe that teams lose on purpose, right? But the problem is that, again, teams that do poorly have a great opportunity to draft highly. And that is rewarding failure. That's the
Right.
definition of rewarding failure. For parity, for any number of reasons that the league has. And so you get seasons like this where you fire literally everyone. You bring in an entirely new management staff. You fire a coach, you bring in a new coach and a few assistants, and you get this season? Like in any other scenario, people are getting fired right now. But
Yes.
with in hockey, it's like, well, no, this is year 2 of whatever you want to call it, right? Reset, rebuild, I don't care. It doesn't matter. But this is it's assumed. No. Kent Hughes isn't going anywhere. Gorton isn't going anywhere. Marty St. Louis isn't going anywhere. And I'm trying to make a broader point. I'm not saying they should go anywhere. I'm just saying that it's accepted. Of course they're not going anywhere. They need time to fix this. But then, we get a season like this where, I mean, does anyone enjoy watching most of these games? I don't know. I don't think so. It's very hard. I mean, there are certain things that you can enjoy watching despite the loss. And I know
That's what
Mo,
it is.
for example, does all the time. But frankly, the end result is what I care about most, frankly. And I'm not saying I can't see the bigger picture. I'm not saying that I can't see progress here and there. But ultimately, I know where this team is going to finish. I know what this season is. I'm worried that it could potentially last longer than We think it could go into next season and the season after that.
It's seriously
And
good.
I'm not that interested, and I don't think that makes me a lesser fan. I just think that ultimately, I want to see my team when they're competitive again, and unfortunately, the league allows or forces teams to go through what we're going through. And for the purists out there, for the diehard Original Six fans, this is awful. This is torture. I mean, to have to wait this long, right? Even 2 years is too long. 2 years in Montreal is like dog years. It's like, it's ridiculous.
I love
It's
it.
too long. It's
It
too long. And I think that's, again, I'm not blaming the organization for it. I'm blaming the league. It's always something I've hated about the sport. This league, I should say, is this system they have where it's forced parity, and that's what this is. You get seasons like this. That's I think the point. I went in circles
Dude, I
there a
love
little
it.
bit, but that's the
I
point I'm
love
trying
it.
to make. Is you get seasons like this. It's ridiculous, honestly. It's just absolutely
Is it a-
ridiculous.
Is it a byproduct of the hard salary cap, do you think?
It's everything. It's everything. Yeah. Go ahead, Mo.
Like,
It has everything to do with the salary cap. I mean, they had to reform it. I think it was like Nashville, teams like Nashville that weren't bringing in as much money after the lockout in 2005. They could only spend a certain percentage of that, and then come 2013, 2012, 2013, when we had that shortened season. They had to bring everybody to a level playing field because those teams weren't doing anything.
Right.
They could only spend like 60. I don't quote me on this. I don't know the exact numbers,
Whoa,
but they
whoa,
were.
there's never a fact checker on here, man. You say what you want.
yeah, you say what
It
you want on
doesn't
this,
matter.
buddy.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
I'm saying,
even
like, I
matter
don't know
if
the
that's
exact
bullshit. Just go
numbers, but
all in, Mo.
there was a clause in there that they could only spend a certain amount because they weren't bringing in so much money. Well, come 2012 and 2013, they had to change everything so that every team was playing on a level playing field and everybody got the same salary cap, and you could only start everybody, you could spend as much as you want, and the teams that were making so much money had to fork over essentially money to support the other teams that weren't bringing in that much money, like your Floridas, your Nashvilles. But Nashville is now, self-sustaining for the most part, although they still do accept money. But in doing so, now your Nashvilles are going to the Stanley Cup Finals. Florida is spending to the cap, and a very competitive team. I'm so surprised they're not. But that's what Florida does, though. Florida will win the division, and then the next year they won't.
Dude.
They won't make the playoffs.
I keep
They
telling
always
that to
do.
people. That's the most Florida thing to ever fucking happen. Be that
Yeah,
close
it's
to
ridiculous.
owning the division, and then, man, it just collapse and start over again. And it'll be great
But-
again in 4 or 5
But
years,
if we
but never
were,
compete.
we were in this same climate, teams like Carolina would not be where they are right now, because Carolina didn't bring in this kind of money. It was because they were being subsidized by teams like the Rangers and the Leafs and the Habs, and now they can come up with a competitive team. They have an owner that has actually turned it around, and they're selling out, but they're still going to have to accept money because they're still not making enough money. But
Right.
with all of that, you have to reward these teams that are failing, and sort of uplift them. It's kind of like, I don't want to make this political, but you have a bunch of venture capitalists that are owning teams working in a socialist society, and it's within themselves because it works. Everybody's making money.
Yeah,
Everybody's
it
making money.
does.
I mean, just to one of my things I used to do on the podcast a lot is compare, hockey to soccer, right? Imagine this scenario, because this happens all the time in European soccer, right? Imagine the Habs finish not that dead last, or dead last, either dead last, second to last, or third to last, right? Imagine the scenario. They get relegated to the AHL next season. So next season, they have to play however many games in the AHL, and they have to finish in a certain position in order to get bumped back up to the NHL. Can you imagine Can you imagine if that was the consequence of finishing last, rather than being rewarded with the potential high draft pick? Can you imagine? Think about that for a second. That's what the potential consequence is for professional teams who spend hundreds of millions of dollars. It's the same thing, right? They have owners, they have boards, they have everything. That's what they face if they don't do well enough. That's not the culture that we have in hockey. It just isn't.
Do they have like a salary cap, John? I don't know
No,
anything about
no,
European.
not
So
at
they
all.
could just go
Not at all.
bananas.
They can do whatever the hell they want. And I'm not saying
Well-
I'm not saying that's the answer either. There are certain financial fair play rules, but they always get around that. None of them abide by the rules, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. And I'm not necessarily saying that's the answer, because yeah, you do end up having, 3 or 4 teams who just kind of do whatever the hell they want, right? And also they buy and sell human beings. Really, there's no other way to describe it. They're buying and selling players. So
Right.
that's a little weird, but you got to look past that. But the fact is that that's not what we as hockey fans experience in the NHL, right? We are, well, I wouldn't say not us. I don't think the 4 of us think this way, but a huge contingent of this fan base are actually supporting and pumping their fists when our team loses.
Yeah.
That's how this is like the bizarro world. Like, I don't know the mental gymnastics that it must take to be happy when your team loses, because you might get a really good player. And it's just like I'm not sure we want to open that can of worms just yet, but the fact is
Sure, we
that
do.
this is what happens. It breeds this kind of weird cynicism / I don't know what you call this, where you're praying and hoping your team loses. And again, Mo is the best to speak to this, because he's the one who sort of taught me this. Like, there's no precedent that you can point to say, hey, look how this worked. Look how great it worked. Look how great.
Right.
We tanked for this X number of years. We got this player, we got that player, and now look at us. We're winning all the time. We're winning cups. Who can you point to?
Other than Pittsburgh, when they got Fleury and Crosby, were able. And so here's another thing that we used to talk about, or at least I used to talk about on the pad. There's or the old podcast is. There's this magical idea that you can turn a team around in 5 years. And and that's the problem that I have, is that people think it's like a solid formula. No, it's not a solid formula. The only team that has turned themselves around from dead last to Stanley Cup champions, or not even Stanley Cup champions, but competitive, is the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's it.
Well, there is something to be said about getting the best player in the year under a 12-year contract for under $9 million. So, you know what I mean? Like, when he that 12-year contract is the catalyst for a lot of that shit, right? We can't do that anymore. Anybody who plays at, like, Sidney Crosby would be making $13 million after, you know what I mean? Like, 12 years? That's bananas.
It is.
Well, I mean, you're looking at a 10-year turnaround. Yeah, like, I mean, if you look at most teams like Tampa and Washington took 14 years until they won their cup.
Okay, but guys, come on, we gotta give it to Bergevin. We're speaking as if we're starting a rebuild right now. We've been drafting good, man. This young club early in the season carried the team over while we had so many injuries. So come on, Gouli, that's fucking Bergevin. You're looking at Jacky, that's even fucking Bergevin. You're looking at the guys that were battling and making the difference, like Suzuki and Caulfield, all fucking Bergevin. So to say that right now, the rebuild is starting, to me, that's a bit hypocrite, guys. It's been on. Bergevin was actually right. You can start stacking the cupboards while competing. He was just right. Get those picks.
Bergevin stacked the cupboards, but he spent his whole paycheck to get there. Let's just put it that way.
I get it. They drafted good kids, man. So let's give it to them.
Yep.
We're gonna strive on some of these kids, or at least value we'll get trading them. So it's.
What do you mean by that, Brian? Sorry, I just want
to. He stacked the cupboards. He was a shrewd trader, and he kept his second round picks and he kept his first round picks, and he was stacking the cupboards. But he also gave away too many big contracts, too long of contracts.
Yeah.
So here we are, supposedly in the third year of a rebuild, $92 million salary, right?
But you know what, Brian? Bergevin's biggest flaw had absolutely, in my opinion, had absolutely nothing to do with who he drafted or who Timmins drafted or who his team drafted or who he traded for. It's his coaching. I mean, firing Terrier when he did, idiocy. Hiring Julien when he did, idiocy. Keeping Julien for as long as he did, idiocy. I just can't get over how long Claude Julien had as coach. Hiring Ducharme. I mean, honestly, I never understood that move because it's like you get rid of Muller and Julien, right? But you keep Ducharme. It's like, well,
it was so weird.
He was behind the bench for as long as the other two guys were. What the hell? Like, what? Are you suggesting he had no say, during that time period, and now all of a sudden he's going to be king of the castle? And that never made any sense to me. Now, look, if you want to sit there and say, well, his hands were tied because of the whole language thing, well, fine. You can make that argument if you want. But I still don't understand why he made some of these decisions. That was his biggest flaw, and I really do think it set us back. I mean, he traded a lot, but I used to say on the pod, he traded his way out of every problem. The thing is, he did it so well. Like, know, if that's your go-to and it's working, okay, that's your go-to. Who gives a shit? But the problem was who he hired and fired and kept on as coach. That to me is the most mind-boggling thing about him. I'll never understand his decision-making there, and I really think that was the problem for us ultimately.
Did you?
Yeah.
Sorry. Did you find it odd, like given how good he was at trading, because he found some diamonds in the rough. Did you find it odd that his deadlines were so lackluster?
Odd. I mean, trading at the deadline is the worst time to be trading, right? Because he's right. Everyone knows what you're looking for or what you're trying to give up, and the market is likely usually saturated with X, Y, and Z. And so, I think that most of the time when he was busiest, it was when he was hopeful that we'd make a cup run, right? So I don't put much stock in deadline moves, to be honest, because you're either going to overpay or you're going to bring in a couple of guys who you think might do the trick for cheap or what have you. I didn't put much stock in that, honestly. Like he used to say all the time, the off season is when you build your team, and and I think Pat is right to an extent. Like he did draft, or his team drafted certain players, and like we can't thumb our noses at Caulfield. We can't. Like what a fantastic pick that was, and. So
he even did it we remember that situation where Pacioretty basically announced to everyone he was moving the fuck on, but not signing anywhere he didn't want to sign, and Bergevin still managed to get that fucking Nick Suzuki included in the trade. That
think about it, Pat. You're right. He managed to get Suzuki for a guy who asked to be traded twice.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, because I've been saying that for as long as people would listen to me. He asked twice for sure.
And he was criticized for not trading faster at that time, I remember.
Oh, yeah. We all thought Patch's value was gone. Everybody. There wasn't a person out there. Like, what's he still doing playing golf? Get them the fuck out of here.
So, no, it's not. His asset management was not the problem, in my opinion, at all. It was his relationship and his decision-making with the coaching. Sorry, Mo, go ahead.
Yeah, no, with Bergevin, I think the only trade deadline that he had that was sort of blockbusters in 2014 when he picked up Thomas Vanek. I mean, really, that's the only one. Awesome, man. And then the other time, I mean, I think the following year, it was just prior to the deadline, he picked up Jeff Petrie. But it was prior. I mean, he started doing the work back in January and February. But
I'm not a big fan of Petrie, but we did get the best of that trade. No doubt. Easy, right?
Yeah. I mean, you got quite a few years. I mean, when Shea Weber was out, Petrie was a freaking monster. I mean, he saved us quite a bit, but the thing about it, though, fuck, did we suck?
He was part of it. Really wasn't
much to. We were hopeful, but I mean,
there was one season that still haunts me, and it was when we lost to the Rangers in the first round. I thought
Yeah.
that was one of the best teams we've had in years. You know, that was the Radulov years. That was the Weber. We seemed like we were firing on all
John.
cylinders. That series still haunts me. It really does.
John,
That
please,
was so we
please-
finished 104 points in first place. The Rangers were 103 points and
Hey,
finished
correct?
in eighth
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
Fix
Sorry, Pat.
the format.
and right after that playoffs against the Rangers, I specifically asked for Jonathan Drouin, and Bergevin gave it to me. I don't know if y'all remember that. All on Twitter.
You wanted Drouin.
I tweeted.
Bad he wanted
Ge-
Drouin.
I tweeted right after the Rangers, I want fucking Drouin, and I got him that same summer, man. Mark just listened. You rarely get that wish. I did. So, I don't know. I like the guy. Now, do I regret? That's another question. But back in the days, fuck, I was happy, man. I was living a big dream. The guy I always wanted.
Drouin is one of those things that, you know, he's like Galchenyuk to me, where every year I was like, I hope this is his year. I hope this is his year. And Drouin is just, you know, fading away into the sunset now.
Yeah, I was
We
looking
might as
at
well
the-
ask you boys. Ask them, Pat. 1 million?
no. Yeah, 2 millions, 2 years. Do you do it, Mo?
2 million, 2 years, meaning one per.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I would do that. Yeah.
Oh shit! So, there's a bridge. There's a point where you keep Jonathan Drouin for a year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. He puts
Oh,
up the points,
man.
man. He may not get.
Mo, I
goals,
love you,
and he
man.
puts up the points.
I love you, man.
I know John may have something different to say about this, but I would because I see that Jonathan Drouin is putting up the points, and right now, who doesn't get injured? But it
Well,
seems like
that's a
Jonathan
whole
Drouin
other-
is always.
That's-
we'll
That's
get
my
into
problem
that.
with Drouin.
Yeah.
Like, we have so much on injury reserve that we just can't sign any more players that are prone to injury or prone to missing time. We just
No, that's the key.
Drouin right now, believe it or not, looks like he's having fun, and he's playing that hockey that
In a nothing season.
Yeah.
What difference are
Yeah.
you having fun now? Okay, good for
Yeah.
you. I
I
don't
mean,
give a
it's just,
shit.
it's just being on the ice, you know, in that MSL driven locker room. And I would take a chance on him for 1 year. 2 years at 1 million is not, you know, anything to balk at, but I would do it. Yeah, why not? John, what do you think?
Well, it depends if, again, this is, and we don't know this until after the fact. It depends if he's a distraction in the locker room or not. You know, I don't know if he is. You know, he's not around much. When he is, he does like there was a time, and when Ducharme was coach, he looked pissed off all the time in practice. You know, like I didn't know what to make of it. You see it, and that's it, unless you're told by somebody in the know that, oh, listen, yeah, I can tell you that behind the scenes it's X, Y, and Z. You know, if the only issue with him is missing time, then that's something that the organization will have to address. You know, in terms of, as Pat says, you know, I know it's a joke, but you know, like, do you offer him, do you lowball him and say, listen, we can't do this, you know, anymore. But if we want to keep you around, you're good for the guys, you know. Okay, but if his absences are a distraction, and I'm not saying they are. Okay, I'm not. I'm just asking because, like I said, I remember. I don't know if it was not last season, or maybe it was. Yeah, he was mouthing off in practice and getting kind of agitated. And I remember people are like, "Oh yeah, that's what you want to see," and I'm thinking, "Is it?" Like, I don't know about that. Like, it's the fire in his belly, and I'm thinking, I don't know. Like, it could go either way, you know. So I don't know. I honestly don't know. But
There's going to be there's going to be a team trying to reach the cap floor that's going to offer more.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, but that's going to happen all the time, right? I mean, I think that ultimately the question is, I think as Brian pointed out, is do you want to keep signing or, you know, dealing with players who are injury prone? And
I mean,
I don't know.
I could be convinced to if we didn't have so much on the injury reserve list now. We need off of injury reserve so bad, it's not even funny.
But that's
Like,
another
we need-
conversation altogether. What the hell is happening? Honestly, like, I know it could just be one giant coincidence, but there are too many injuries.
years in
as
a
far as
row?
I'm concerned, it's insane. There are too many injuries with this team, and I'm thinking back to how they managed Carey's injuries now. I'm thinking back to how they managed Shea Weber's injuries now. I'm thinking back to the fact that Cole Caulfield played injured, which I still find astoundingly stupid. I mean, I'm really starting to wonder what the hell's going on in that department. I don't know if it's conditioning. I don't know if it's the medical department. I don't know. But questions are going to have to start being asked as far as I'm concerned. There are too many injuries on this team. Too
Two
many.
years in a row. 2 years in a row, the team with the most injured players during games, right? Like 2 years in a row.
And it's
you
not
can't-
like we're fighting for
I
anything.
know you can't blame
Right.
two in a row on pure fucking bad luck. No, you're right. You can't. Okay, John. 2 years league minimum.
Yeah, sure.
Good.
As long
Good,
as it's
yeah.
not a distraction.
2-2. I honestly, I don't know.
I cannot believe I'm alone on this panel right
Boom.
now.
Jokes aside, though, I wonder if Jonathan Drouin taking that time off right before the playoffs didn't kind of inspire Carey Price a bit into accepting
No.
help. I don't know, man. I
No.
don't think it's as big for me that a guy that's proud like fucking Carey Price is to do that. I don't know, man. We're not in that room. I feel like it's mental health is still a stigma in the league, right? It's not as open as it could be, right?
Honestly, Pat, I think Carey had to do it. I think it was one of those things where it was unavoidable. You know, I mean, it was called one thing, mental health, and then it quickly became apparent that it was also something else. And now
Which
you
is
start to
also
ask
mental
yourself,
health, though, in many
What's
cases,
that,
right? Which is also mental health in many cases.
well,
right?
it's linked, but I'm just saying that I wonder
Right.
if he was unavoidable. I don't know if he took Jonathan Drouin's situation as
Not
inspiration.
saying
I think
it's
it was
the main factor, but I think it could have helped, man. He wasn't the first guy around
Maybe.
the team to acknowledge needing help and moving on with something personal, right?
I also think sometimes a little bit that the timing was fishy about that. I think Carey was dealing with some demons for a couple of years. I don't think that was a new issue that just came up. And the fact that they were starting to get scrutinized about how long he was out with the knee surgery and this and that. And then that came up. And then it was like, from that point on, there was no questions at all. It was like, okay, he's out indefinitely, and that's just the way it is, right? So I found the timing a little bit fishy about that. I
Yeah,
think
me
he could
too.
have went to take part of that program probably 2 years prior.
And I remember saying this again a few years ago is, listen, I mean, obviously we know Carey's injuries are, have essentially ended his career, right? Like it's, but to Brian's point, right, about Drouin, he initially said injuries, but then he, I think, smartly called it something else, and he called it missing time. And listen, it's fantastic that the league is becoming more and more open-minded, I guess, if you want to call it that, or maybe not the league per se, but certain teams are doing it. But this is going to start to become an issue for management. Like if players are missing time because of mental health issues, in addition to the plethora of injuries they can get playing professional sports, I think that's going to start to become more and more of an issue for them to consider when dealing with potential contracts. And I they're not going to openly say it because that would be awful to admit publicly. But it is what it is, especially when you're talking about players who are superstars, the Carey Prices of the world. I mean, you can't really point to that as an excuse for him not being around because, again, his knees are done. But,
right.
What if he didn't have any knee injuries? You go into a playoff run without your star players, that's a problem. And again, I'm not saying they don't deserve to take a break, but from an organizational standpoint, that's a problem.
Yeah.
The NBA,
yeah.
The NBA is really dealing with this right now, in that a player can they don't have to play every single game right now. Players can sit out whenever they want, saying they need a day of rest. So there's some players, let's say, I don't know what it is, but let's say there's 80 games in the NBA season. Most players are playing about 60.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy because, and you like on the morning shows with the NBA or the TNT group are always complaining about these guys making $30 million a year, and they're allowed to sit up because it's in their CDA, right? And we're just starting to to see this in the NHL where guys are dealing with mental health issues, and we're already frustrated with it because you've lost a key guy. I mean, we went to the Stanley Cup Finals without one of the guys that we needed, like Drouin. We needed Drouin in that Cup final. In every series, we needed him. But it's the way the world is going right now, and I don't know how the NHL is going to react to it because the NHL hockey culture is completely different than any other sports culture.
Oh my, yeah.
And I know the NFL would never deal with players taking time off or anything like that, but the NBA it's deep into their game right now. So, I mean, on any given night, LeBron James could just say, "I can't play tonight," and it's not an injury or anything. I just need a day off. Any given night.
Do we want to be basketball though? Like, is that the goal? I remember that night.
No, I'm not saying we want to be basketball. I'm saying it may turn into that.
Oh, I hate it.
In the next CBA.
I remember that night Rich Piverley had a heart attack on the bench in Dallas. That same night, LeBron James got carried off the court for a fucking cramp in his leg. Like, what the fuck's going on, man? What the fuck's going on? Yeah, man. I don't want to be any other sport, man. Fuck these guys.
And they needed 6 guys to carry him like a casket too.
Yeah. You remember that, eh? Fuck, man.
I do, totally.
Ask Rich Piverley. Ask if he could go finish the game.
Did he actually?
Yeah. They woke him up in the room after a heart attack, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? Is the game over? Can I go in?" And he was like, "No, the game got canceled." But yeah, fucking hilarious, man.
Warriors, man.
Hockey. Yep.
But the thing about there are some things to look at in basketball that are there's some things that are exciting. Like their trades are exciting, their off season's exciting, playoffs is exciting. I'm not a huge fan of basketball, but I could be drawn into it with the excitement. I don't know if we have that level of excitement in the NHL to draw many people that aren't already fans. Like it's got to be hard to grow this game with the level of non-excitement at times. Like for example, the Montreal Canadiens right now. Like it's hard to get excited about them.
Mm-hmm.
But Brian, the Montreal Canadiens fans will always exist, right? I mean, so that's the thing. Like I might not be paying attention, but I'm still a fan. The second the Habs start to win and have a more competitive edge, I'll be right back into watching every second of every game. I think the problem is parity exists for one reason alone, and that's to grow the game, and that's to make everyone rich, right? I mean, that's ultimately it's both what you said and what Mo said, and I'm telling you that kills purists when it comes to the fan base. It ruins everything. It ruins the party because dynasties are no longer possible, right? You can't spend your way to success, which, listen, I know that sounds bad, but as a sports fan, that's what I want my team to do.
Yeah.
because I want my team to win.
It's also a lot. Yeah.
But why am I watching then? If it not to, I listen. I can go watch a sport because for the love of it in my spare time. We all can, right? But why do we commit to a professional sports team? It's because we want them to win. Most Habs fans, a lot of them might say things like, "Oh, I love the game" and all that bullshit. And they're lying through their teeth. They want their team to win, just like that banner that you have in back of you and all of that. They want them to win. It's all fans want. And if the Habs could, I'd want them to spend their way to success. Why wouldn't I? It's because then they'll win. You think I give a shit if the Habs win the Stanley Cup? Like, let's say the Habs could do whatever they want. They could buy players, or maybe not buy players like in soccer, but they can spend beyond the cap and all of that and attract every free agent out there. You think that Stanley Cup would taste any less sweet? No, not for me. It wouldn't. And the fact is that the league prevents you from doing that, right? So the Habs can spend as much as they want when it comes to coaching. Upper management, their scouting department. They could do whatever the hell they want except for what they pay their players, right? They have to respect the salary cap. And so as a fan, as a purist, the diehards out there get shafted I used to say, and it almost bit me in the ass when the Habs made it to the Cup
Dude, I
final,
love
and then
it.
thank God they lost in 5. But I used to say, we'll be lucky to see the Habs win the Stanley Cup in our lifetime, and I stand by that. It is not like other sports. It is so goddamn hard to win in this league because you got to do well enough to make the playoffs, and then you got to do well enough to make it to the final and win the whole goddamn thing. And it's just not. It's not easy, and it's going to get harder and harder and harder because they're going to keep adding goddamn teams. Soon enough, Toronto will have another team. Like it's coming.
Ouch.
It's coming. They're just
Oh,
going
I
to keep
fucking
adding
hate
to
it.
this league, and it's going to get harder and harder. And I'm just saying that that's what makes this difficult at times for me because I see that the odds are stacked against us constantly, and that just it frustrates me even more when Jeff Molson, as the president, does exactly what you want him to do. Right? When he fired everyone and their mothers a couple of years ago, right? From his standpoint, he did exactly what he had to do. Right? You can agree or disagree with the moves, but he did what he thought he could to make his team better. Right? And so you can't get upset with him about that. He did what he could, right? So he brings these guys in, and now I see people getting upset with Hughes that he isn't doing enough. And I'm thinking, guys, has he even been here for a full year technically? I don't think so. You've got people complaining about Gorton. You got people complaining about Marty St. Louis, and I'm thinking to myself, do you realize how long this is going to take? Seriously,
Yeah.
do you have any idea
Yeah.
how long this is going to take?
We're against the cap ceiling for the next 3 years too. Like Carey doesn't come off until 26.
There you go.
That's a long time. That's a deep hole, right? Actually, let's segue that into another question. Is there any way that he can get rid of that contract this summer? Any way at all?
If a team is looking
Yeah.
to long term, like a team like Vegas, where they're always trying to, skirt the rules and giving away number 1 draft picks like they're Halloween candy. Like, it's just, if a team like that, and I don't know of any other team that's willing to do that, if they up and take his contract, maybe one of the bottom feeding teams like Chicago or depending on what their timeline is, maybe they want to take it just to get to the cap floor. Who knows? But
I was thinking about the Dadonov and Weber trade, and that was so unique because they had to move out that $5 million in order to put him back, and then they were at the cap again. And because, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you not have to be at the cap ceiling in order to activate LTIR, or are you allowed to do that at any point? Like, can you be under the cap and activate LTIR? I think you have to be at the ceiling or at the ceiling. Do you not?
I don't know if you have to be at the cap. I think it's more of a matter of, do you want to?
Right. But when they took Weber on, they needed to be cap compliant before they put him on LTIR, right? So like they couldn't trade and be over the cap and then use his cap hit on LTIR. So like moving Dadonov, they had to go over and be under 82 before that they could put him up, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know the history of it, but and I don't know the capology of it, but yeah, I don't know.
It's super unique to get a contending team that wants that extra cap space. There's you're looking for a diamond in the rough kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But like the teams that want to hit the cap floor, I think maybe it's possible. But it's still a long time. Like
But also, it's a long time in the sense that we need these all these draft picks that were, all these players we're drafting. Do you know how long? First of all, how many of them are going to actually pan out? That's the first question.
Half of what we expect, maybe less.
Less than half. Yeah. How long is it going to take for those players to actually become who we think? I mean, are they going to become who we think they're going to become? That's another question.
That one depends.
So panning out, and becoming who they want, who they think they should become, are two different things completely. How long is all of that going to take? It's going to take years. It's going to take years. Unless you draft first overall and you get damn lucky with a Connor McDavid type player,
Yeah.
Look
No,
at look at our pick. How long is it going to take for him to get his feet under him and actually start producing how we want him to? I mean, a couple of years minimum.
It
And
won't be at entry level, that's for sure.
absolutely not. And so again, you have to factor this stuff in, I think, as fans, right? And that's why I find this obsession with getting Connor Bedard so infuriating, because it's like just even getting to the point where that is a possibility is I mean, I'm not going to say it's unlikely because we're doing so poorly this season anyway, but it's such a reach, right? And again, it forces me to ask the question, what do you expect the team to do exactly? Lay down? Like, people are constantly, up until tonight, people were constantly complaining about Montembeault and Allen, that they were doing, they were playing too well, right?
Yeah, stealing
What
games.
do fans expect them to do? To literally let pucks in? I don't know what planet I'm living on.
I've said it 100 times on this podcast. They are no more stealing games than Hoffman is when he scores a hat trick out of nowhere. You know what I mean? That's what you're expected to do. You're a professional. You're expected to stand on your head. It might sound like an oxymoron, but goals saved above average is expected sometimes. That's what you're being paid for, right?
I mean, it used to. It was the
Well-
same thing. It was the same absurd thing I used to hear all the time about people getting upset that Carey Price was being overworked. I'm thinking, well, why do we have him then? Like, if we have to worry about our defensive core when we have him Carey and net, what planet am I on? We have Carey Price for a reason, and if he has to steal his games, steal away. Like, that's the point. That's why you're there. And it's the same argument. And so the difference now is that these goalies are doing it in a quote unquote losing season, and that's what's pissing everybody off, because
It is.
And I don't understand the logic. I really don't. If we happen to finish last, even though we're trying not to, and we then get Connor Bedard, fantastic, right? That is the best of every single world. But that's not how it works. The team is not going to lay down. They're not going to lose on purpose. And so if you accept that fact, what the hell are you complaining about? Like, if you're upset, like, it's okay to be, I get it. It's fun, you want Connor Bedard, and if the Habs win, you're kind of like, oh, okay, oh, shucks, But that should be the end of it. But some of these fans are absolutely militant about the Habs losing, like wanting them to lose and getting
They
upset
just
when
don't
they don't.
understand the game, and they just don't understand athletes' mentality. I mean,
No,
you
that's my
hear about the
point.
Habs getting pissed off that these guys are wanting them to lose. Well, we were just talking about Jonathan Drouin. Do you think he's wanting to lose, knowing that
On a
he
contract
has
year?
no contract next year? And any other guy out there that is trying to play for a contract, even guys on entry level contracts.
Mhm.
Do you think they want to make 700,000 next year, or do they want to make 2 million or 3 million?
Right.
It makes no sense. There's no logic to it. But
It took so much for me as a human being not to be miserable after losses. I cannot get myself to be miserable after wins. I can't do it. It's not in my DNA. I just can't do it.
I've said the same.
I understand the logic. I get it. The higher you draft, the better the odds, this and that. But I mean, at the end of the day, the St. Pats are 6th in their division. If that was the be all and end all of winning, he'd be winning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. And with that controversy, I keep going to other leagues as examples, but there was that coach in Miami that was told by the owner in the NFL to hold back guys to start losing, and it turned into a massive controversy, right? And it's like, that's not the competitive nature that these guys are built. You go out to win games.
Yeah.
Like, if I told you, hey, only cut half the course today. Don't cut the green. Don't cut the green.
Oh God, we gotta cut the green smoke.
You're literally gonna look at your boss and say, "Are you fucked in the head?" Like,
Yeah.
it makes no sense to me, But
And again, I understand the logic. What I don't understand is like wanting and cheering for losses and wagging fingers and this and that. And needing to rush moves. I don't understand why everything has to be done right now.
I know.
Let's take Josh Anderson, for example. Josh Anderson at the trade deadline had 18 goals, right? So he gets phone calls, and it's, what do you want for him? He tells him what he wants. Not enough. So he plays the rest of the season. He may wind up with 25 goals. Is he worth more on the draft floor than he was at the trade deadline because he's got 7 more goals at the end of the season? He absolutely is. He absolutely is.
Well, here's another thing: is that people just say stock up the draft picks, stock up the draft picks.
Yeah,
we're limited to
Yeah.
50 contracts a season.
Yep,
50
100%.
contracts a season. Right now, we have 47 contracts, and we have 4 guys on a reserve list that are expiring. So you can draft all these guys, but there's no guarantee that you can sign them because the league has rules.
Yeah.
You can only have 50 contracts.
Yep.
So you're going to lose a couple of guys this year that we drafted.
And the fact is, there's stages to this. Whether you want to call it a rebuild or not, you don't draft high and then contend. There's a middle of the pack. If there was nothing going on in the middle of the pack, what a fucking fun league this would be, right? You're either contending or you're tanking. That's no fun at all. That's like, speak of a way to not get any excitement.
Well, also people who say things like, well, we have to stock up our draft picks, right? And expecting instant success. When you say something like that, you've just added about 5 years to your your timeline. Because again, like my point, like just like I said earlier, you have to draft them, you have to, sign them, you have to see how they do. It takes time. This shit takes time. And they have to
push a veteran out of their spot. You can't just gift draft picks the slots, right? Somebody's got to push Armia out. Somebody's got to push Hoffman out. You know what I mean?
And you can. Look, I mean, in the sense that look how many recent draftees have played this season, right? But it's baptism by fire. Like it's not like they're going to light it up. It's a learning experience. It's a learning curve, right? And we have to live through that with them, which means that we have to see them struggle and we have to see them have good nights and then bad nights, and that's how it works. And it takes fucking time. And it
takes time to adapt to the speed of the league too. It's exponential, the difference between the speeds of the leagues. And
you said something earlier, Brian, about you understand the logic. I don't. I still don't understand this logic. It's not logical. None of this is logical. Okay, it's again, it's a ploy. We know why they do it. We know why they reward teams with high draft picks. It's because they want everyone to have a chance. Because then it grows the game. It's a fan's worst fucking nightmare. And it blows my mind that fans are hanging on to the slim chance that we're going to be able to draft the top end talent, as if that is something to celebrate. It's such a fucking con job. Like this whole thing is such a con.
I think the logic behind that, and I understand where they're coming from, the Tankers fans, is that if you finish last, you have the highest percentage rate to get the first pick, and you're guaranteed to get anything lower than the second last.
I wasn't saying I wasn't questioning the logic behind pro tankers. I'm talking about the logic behind rewarding shit teams with a high draft pick. Like as Brian was saying, he understands why fans want this to happen because you get rewarded potentially. Right. And I'm saying that whole system is a joke. It's a complete joke. And I think true fans, it drives me I'm not true fans. I don't want to piss off anybody, but
you
I'm
used
just
the
saying
word
that
purist earlier. Right? I like that. I like that. That's a nice way to dodge the actual word, right?
Well, and I think for certain teams, original six teams, for example, fans of originals, I think it does matter. You got to contend with the Sharks and the Ducks of the world. Are you fucking kidding me? Come on. And then you get teams that are brand new that are just picking and pillaging you, and it's ridiculous. It's just it's a joke. And then I don't know. I don't understand the logic.
Meanwhile, we're setting records for most goals allowed in the first period since 1932 or whatever it is. Yeah, it's fucking embarrassing. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
I'm wondering if it has if there's an age line where it's you just don't remember what it was like pre-salary cap. You know what I mean? Like you said, purist. Let's use the word purist for the rest of the show. Is there the fact that we grew up knowing that literally every October everybody had a chance, right? So now you go through the summer and you've got people fucking with their analytics and they're telling you that this is where you're going to end after 82 games before a fucking puck is even dropped. Is that part of it? You know what I mean? Like, is the excitement gone?
The thing about that, though, it wasn't perfect pre-salary cap. It wasn't. And if you go back to 1999, 2000, the Habs were struggling financially because we're competing against teams that, like, in terms of the Dallas Stars that are working on the American dollar, and we were working on the Canadian dollar. So nobody wanted to come here. And then if you go back even further, teams like the Calgary Flames were not making the kind of money as the Toronto Maple Leafs, and nobody wanted to play in Calgary. You remember that big, huge trade that sent Doug Gilmour to Toronto that essentially made Toronto competitive in 1993? That was because Calgary could not afford him. And they were not bringing in the kind of money that the Toronto Maple Leafs were, even though they were getting paid in Canadian dollars. It was fine. But they had to send over 5 players to Toronto and then send over 5 players to Calgary. Calgary shit the bed, and they were competitive for a good 6-7 years before that. And then Toronto all of a sudden became good. And this is a team that growing up they were a joke, and I loved watching them. And then they became competitive, and you realize, wow, Toronto has really annoying fans. Like, you absolutely hated them. And that was in 1993, and that's the only reason Toronto became competitive is because other Canadian teams, nobody wanted to play there because they were not making the money that they couldn't. So they had to level the playing field somehow. And then that was 1993, 1991, 92. The league went through that. Come 1999, 2000, we were dealing with a dollar figure issue in comparison, like the currency between U.S. and Canada. And Montreal struggled, and I'll give credit. Gary Bettman came out and saved the Habs because he had to level the playing field. And that's what led us to 2005 when the salary cap really came in and sort of somewhat saved the league, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, but Mo, how long have teams that finish dead last been rewarded with a top end draft pick? I mean, how long has that been the case?
Oh, since day one.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, and all these other mechanisms. I mean, some of them, as you say, some of them are good, some of them are bad. But the fundamental rewarding of teams that finish dead last with a top end draft pick is based on what piece of philosophy? It's to literally make it a level playing field. There's no other explanation for it. None. And again, they throw gimmicks like the lottery at it, which, yeah, okay. I mean, it might make some kind of difference every once in a while. One team that really finishes dead last, like really badly, still doesn't get it. Yeah, that's true. That can happen. Look at the Habs last year.
It's not really a gimmick. It's deterring teams from pulling these other guys out. Just selling off their top end players and really tanking the team. Like, it's more of a deterrent than anything else.
It still happens, though. It still happens.
It absolutely happens.
Still, teams still get rid of. They absolutely get rid of their talent. I mean, because like I said, if you finish within that zone, you have a shot. And
Right.
even if you don't get the top draft pick, you're going to get potentially a really good player regardless, right?
Right.
And so you're in that comfort zone, which is you're not doing well. That's my point. The comfort zone is you're actually doing very poorly. And that's what I can't wrap my head around. And as Brian said, I accept that this is the reality that the league perpetuates. I accept it. I have no choice but to accept it. And I'm saying that it actually, for me as a fan, it completely poisons the mindset. It warps our appreciation of maybe not the game as a whole, but certainly of how I support my team, how I engage with fellow fans. I don't understand half the shit I hear from our fan base sometimes. Like the pro tankers and stuff, I don't understand what they're trying to say. I don't know what evidence they have to say that, to point to and say this works. I don't know how they think the team operates in this environment, like if they actually think that they're trying to lose, like I don't understand what they're trying to say. If all you're saying is the Habs are doing poorly this season, I hope we get Connor Bedard. If that's where you stop, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I don't like this. I don't like it
I
at
want
all.
the shiny new toy. I want him to.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I'm not willing to be a miserable prick to anybody when we lose or when we win a hockey game. It's just it can't happen.
Exactly, and they're actively saying things like, "Oh no, why is this player playing?" or "Why is this goalie saving pucks? Are you kidding me? That's his job. Like, what do you mean?"
I have a question. Okay, so this stat, the goals saved above expected. Okay, this stat, for example, I think Monty's got 12 or 13 goals, and like a lot of people say it translates to 5 or 6 more losses if he was just playing his average hockey. But what about a game like tonight where we are outscored by 4 goals? Like, does that not wipe out 4 of those expected goals, or is it a cumulative thing? Because I don't understand.
Don't even talk to me about like. I'm a purist.
But that's what I'm trying to get. Yeah. We've lost like fucking by 6-7 goals a couple of times. So how does 12 goals saved above average translate to 6 or 7 more losses? I don't understand the logic. I don't get that.
But Brian, I don't even understand seeing. So say that again. It's goals saved above expected. What's the language that they use?
Yeah, so like it's a cumulative thing. So like they expected him to have let in this many goals, but he's let in this many goals. So he has saved 15 goals or 16 goals that he wasn't supposed to save, right?
Okay.
So does that not get wiped out by getting beat by 6 goals?
Forget that. Is that not his job? Like I don't understand what this is. You can say you can say that shit, spout that shit all you want. I absolutely like all this expected this, graph that, numbers this, negative shit. It's all gibberish to me. So fundamentally what you're saying is that Montembeault is saving more pucks than he's letting in.
He's expected to, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the job. And
and the funny thing is, you want an elite goaltender, except for in a season whenever you're supposed to be losing. It's hilarious. Not just
I want an elite goaltender. I'm paying $2 an hour. That's what I want. And if that guy's name is Montembeault, then sign me up. Because the biggest, and I'm gonna quote Mike here, even though he's not here. He used to say all the time, and Mo can vouch me on can confirm this. He used to say the biggest mistake you can make is paying your goalie $10 million a year.
Yeah.
And what I'd much prefer is to pay a goalie McDonald's salary, and he makes carry price saves. That's what I want. And this idea that we are supposed to be upset that a goalie is doing that. And listen, if Montembeault next season is the worst goalie in the world, tough shit. Like they just that's a shame, right? But I'm not going to look at that and say, oh. God, why couldn't he have been that bad last season? Like, it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to lose on purpose. And I just wish, do me a favor, Pro Tankers. Next time you decide to tweet something, just say it. You want the team to lose on purpose. Just say it, because that's what they're asking for. Because it's the only logical explanation to all this nonsense that you listen to. Because basically what they want is for Montembeault to let in more goals than he saves. That's what they want. And the only way that they're going to guarantee that happens is if he does it on purpose. Right? If he happens to let in more goals, that's a bad night at the office. Right?
Right.
But if he doesn't, that's his job. So if just please, just say it. That's all you want the team to lose on purpose. And then what I hope you say afterwards is that's not what's going to happen. They don't lose on purpose. This isn't the third division in Colombia where it does happen because these guys get paid off. It happens all the time. But that's not how this works in the NHL. They're not going to do that.
I'll go one further. A lot of people say that management needs to move. Management needs to do the things that make the team lose some more. But like if we look at it, management has to pay to get rid of some players. Like the precedent is set. If you want to move some contracts or if you want to move dead weight off your team, you're paying. So what is it? Is it stockpile draft picks and prospects, or is it to pay to get rid of the players that are moving the needle, right?
But
It
Brian,
doesn't make any sense to me.
let's say that both Jake Allen and Montembeault are playing above their station, right?
Mhm.
And let's say that Kent Hughes is sitting there going, "Fuck me, they're playing too well. I can't have this," right? Let's say he deals them both, gets rid of them, right? Calls up Primo, says, "Okay, you know, Hughes is sitting there going, man, every time Primo plays for the Habs, he's terrible, right? He does well with Laval, and then we call him up, and he just shits the bed.
I don't
Perfect,
even understand.
right? Perfect, all right? We get rid of Allen. We get rid of Montembeault. Caden, get up here, right? All right, he's going to shit the bed. All of a sudden, he turns into Carey Price, right? Like, who's to say that doesn't happen? This is what I'm saying. It's the certainty in which some of these fans make these statements. Like, if we just did this, if we just did X then, and Y, then we'd get this. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not, first of all, it maybe, but it's not how it works. And it's just, who's to say that whoever, as you say, if you do sell off a certain player because they're playing too well or something like that, who's to say the guy you replace him with doesn't start? Look at Raphael Harvey Pinard, right? I mean, turning into Gallagher all of a sudden, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, good, yeah, bring up more guys from Laval who won't do a damn thing, and all of a sudden they start doing a lot of damn things, right?
Yeah.
You realize that your prospects have a lot of potential. You know.
Yeah.
Oh no,
And-
shucks.
And fire in their tummies to make the team. Yeah.
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 Jeez,
And-
I think
point,
Harvey Pinard is talked himself into a longer term contract just by the way he's.
too.
I mean, yeah, he's playing with Nick Suzuki right now, but Nick Suzuki, we got to trade that guy too. Different story, but
Sure. Get rid of them all.
Woo!
yeah, get rid of them all. Let's start from scratch, and then next year, whatever he replaces Suzuki with, if he starts playing well, let's get rid of him too.
Get rid of him too.
Yeah,
Well,
Let's get
I
rid
know
of it.
there's a faction on Twitter now that wants to trade Caulfield because they think he wants too much for his extension. Like it's crazy out there.
well,
right now.
here, there's. I don't know what he wants,
What's
but
too
there is
much?
a limit.
I think-
on that. Yeah,
I think he
don't
wants
know.
a bridge.
What's too much, man?
And that's fine. You know, but at the same time, you know, that bridge can't be worth, you know, $9 million. You know, like I'm not going to pay the guy. He's not deserving of $9 million. He's not deserving of 8. You know,
But you
Would
know
you
what?
pay him 9/8 though? Would you invest right now? If
no,
if you
absolutely
would sign
not.
for 8?
Absolutely
Oh,
not. No, not 9. I mean, how? What's Caulfield without Suzuki, and what's Suzuki without Caulfield? Right now.
Oh, we're seeing Suzuki without
I,
Caulfield
I think,
now.
I think,
yeah, so-
Yeah.
guys, I think this is recency bias. Suzuki in the playoffs. Remember that guy. The guy is clutch. You gotta
Oh, I
consider
know.
that.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't think of,
Hey,
of
that's
the that's and people saying, "Oh, nice, we found our first center, Kirby Doc." I'm like, "God, come on, what's the sample here? 25 games where he's been better than Suzuki that carried you through 2 fucking playoffs run? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I don't even. You know, that's just complete nonsense to me. Suzuki is our future. You know.
He's a beast.
What we need is what Boston Bruins have been getting, which is buy-in from the players to stick around, take less money, and that's what we need. And the fact is that presumably that's why somebody like Kent Hughes was brought in. He's a former agent. He knows how to talk to these guys, and that's
numbers.
and that's going to be to be determined, right? Like if he's able to build a team that is full of young talent who are not demanding for the world, right? Like some guys in Toronto have been doing for the last few seasons. Then that's what we need, because ultimately in a cap world, that's what's going to get you success, right? I mean, if you keep overpaying 1 or 2 players, you're going to be in the same position, and not just overpaying them, but overpaying them over a decade,
Yeah.
I mean, these long contracts. Which player finishes out these contracts? None of them. None of them
True.
do.
Yeah. I mean, Taze
And
is out. Kane, maybe. Yeah.
you just
But
you don't see it, right? You do not see it. If you're lucky, you get maybe 60%.
And if you do see it, they don't age well. That's for sure.
Well, and Brian, imagine that. So you get maybe, if you're lucky, you get 60% of the decade-long contract that you've just handed to the player, and your hope, and maybe one or two of those seasons were clutch, and the rest, were injury. Look at Carey. Look at Carey Price.
Yeah.
I mean, that you can argue, you can make an argument that's kind of what happened to him, right? Like, he had a couple of seasons which he was just outrageously good, and then the rest were, injury prone, this and etc. And then now he's not playing at all. That's the problem with how we're handing out contracts. And for as long as we do that, and as long as we make not mistakes, I should say, but as long as if we're not able to manipulate, I shouldn't say that word, but convince, certain players to buy into the project, because ultimately what we want is to win a cup together. That's the only argument you can possibly make. Then I'm telling you, it's going to be decades and decades of this. It just is. That's the way the league wants it.
Guys, let me interrupt for a second. We're gonna have Messer on the pod, the third guy from Rehab. So yeah, he's just ready randomly. Like if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Let me resize the window quickly. What's up, Messer?
What up, guys?
How are you, man?
Hey, man.
Good.
Bonjour. Maxime. Habibi, how you doing?
حبيبي يا نور العين ازيك؟
There he is.
What up, guys?
How you doing?
Awesome. I'm good. I just had to drop in. Just had to come and say a shout out. Love you guys. Love the show. I've been listening. But man, you guys are so lost. It's okay.
Oh, the pro fucking
to
tanker
live.
just coming in. Is that what's going on here?
Guys,
Is that what
Is that's
Well, while you're here, tell us.
guys. It's
Shit, I gotta
okay to
resize
be
this.
pro tank by wanting small victories within the club without necessarily getting a W on the final sheet. Okay, it depends. It's all a matter of perception. If the coach tells you, "I want you to win that many face-offs. I want you to win that many battles. I want you to win that many zone entries," those are all little wins. Whether or not we get a W at the end of the game, that's not the problem. When you're rebuilding, when you're growing the game, all you need are all those little W's.
But for the pro tankers, winning is the problem.
Yeah. The problem is that when they're succeing too often, because the coach
but
is never
you
tell
can't
you,
go lose
"Hey, I
80
want you to win
games.
7 out of 10
Big whoop.
face-offs."
Want to fight about it?
He's not going to tell you, "I want you to win 7 out of 10 face-offs tonight." He's going to tell you, "Win every fucking face-off you can." That's
Yep.
what he's going to say.
Make every save.
But he knows it's not going to happen.
Right.
Well, what's your point,
Like-
Monsieur?
Huh?
What's your point?
My point is that you guys are all, we can go with a negative attitude. We can go with saying tanking is not real. No, tanking is real. All you have to do is inside the club, you have to win. You have to go with those small victories to grow the club.
Satisfy
but you
yourself with
But
that's
the
no
small
way.
victories, if you're successful, will more than likely lead to a win. That's the
Yes.
point.
But your expectation is a win. But when you're rebuilding, your expectation is not a win. You cannot build your team on simply
Monsieur,
winning
you sound like you're trying to sell me some sort of like snake oil. Okay, what I'm saying is, if you win more of those small battles,
Yes.
you will increase your odds of winning hockey games, which is exactly what pro tankers do not want.
Yes. But a tanker like me, not a pro tanker, but a tanker like me, is not looking for victories today. I'm looking for victories.
No,
next
I
year,
know,
following year.
I know that. But I'm
Yes,
saying
but
that the players are hardwired to win hockey games. They're not hardwired to say, I'm going to win this face-off, but I hope to Christ I lose this hockey game. That's not how they
No,
think.
that's for sure.
Like
But
Christian Dvorak gives a fuck if we get Bedard. He won't even be here whenever you know what I mean. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
yeah, but
Do you
when
get mad when we win, Matt? Do you
Sorry?
get mad? Do you get mad when we win?
If I get mad if we win, no.
At the end of the
Yeah.
day,
The people I have a problem with.
Meh.
But I'm happy when we lose right now.
That's
I'm
okay.
not happy. I'm not
Yeah,
happy.
yeah.
Like I'm not at this point in the season. I'm not. I could care less. But at the same time, I want to see progress on the ice, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're speaking to. If it results in a win, I'm not raging. That's the issue that we have. Is
Yeah,
that
okay.
people start raging when we're winning and celebrating when we're losing. I don't get that. I haven't never got that.
Yeah.
And
at the
Well,
end of the day,
Hang
at
on,
the end of the day, it's literally all just misplaced anger. Like you're not even angry that we're winning. You're angry that we're having a shit season, and you're angry that we're in the midst of what we're rebuilding or whatever. You're angry about something else, and then it's just misplaced because you feel like you need an outlet for it. That's
Right.
what it is. And I mean, we all have misplaced anger even when we're winning. You know what I mean? Oh, goddamn Jeff Petrie, this, that, and the other thing. Like, we're just angry sometimes, and then we need a
everybody now.
But that's all. That's what it all boils up to be. And then you see a tweet that you don't agree with, and then you see a couple comments or somebody comments on your tweet or something like that, and then it just flies off the handle because you're angry. Anger is a weird emotion that you can't control it. So when you're angry, you don't even know why sometimes. And I have a feeling it's more to do with the fact that we're in the midst of what we're in the middle of anyway.
Yeah, but our buddy Andrew, he resumed it pretty well. He's like, pro tankers are like Jordan Binnington yesterday, who just wants to pick a fight with anybody at any time, but he's not necessarily there for the right reasons.
So here's the thing. Earlier in the season, I get annoyed. I'm annoyed when we lose. Like, it just sort of pisses me off, and the night's not going to be the same. And then I have to see some guy just celebrating the fact that we lost, and his logo on Twitter is a Habs logo. I'm just like, fuck off. Honestly, fuck right off.
Guys, don't you miss the days though where when you would win a game, you would sleep with a smile on your face, wake up the next day like, yeah, we won, or be mad because you lost the game. Like, I miss those days. Yes, you're mad, you lost the game. Your wife, you're like, don't talk to me. Tonight is not the night. We lost a big game. Like, I miss those days, but I feel like we're gonna have more of those eventually. Like, they're coming along the route. But
my wife.
Like,
go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
Like it was said earlier in the show, I think you're not watching the games anymore because it's not the season for it, But and understandably so. But we're fans. We're still gonna check the highlights, the goals, the stats. We're fans of the game. We're fans of the team. But I understand how right now it's difficult to even watch and follow the team.
It's hilarious. My wife says that she can tell who's winning whenever she's downstairs and I'm upstairs, right? She used to be able to 100%.
I think that's
she
all
says
of
it's
us,
so
man.
weird. She's like, I have no idea. Like, it's foreign watching you watch hockey games anymore because somebody will score on the Habs and I'm just sitting there. It's like, you know what I mean? I don't swear. I don't like when Caulfield was scoring goals against the Leafs. I was jumping out of my couch still. But now at this point of the season, she's like, it's so weird watching you. You're not the same person you were 3 years ago watching hockey games.
Oh,
and it's true.
It's gonna be back. It's gonna be back. We'll give it 2-3 years.
Hope so.
I mean, I can sort of understand where you're trying to go with your point, Matt. The thing is, if you don't get wins when things, you're coaching players to do certain things right. If you don't get wins, then how are you going to get validation that it's sort of kind of working?
Bingo.
You get validation by the way the players are still fighting today. We still
absolutely, but they're fighting to win,
goals.
Right?
More and more we're hearing, you know what? Habs could be in on free agency because players are talking positively about what's happening in the Habs locker room. Players like Edmondson who are saying, you know what, I want to be part of this. I feel like it's going somewhere. If a guy like Jonathan Drouin wants to sign back here, I'm just using him as an example because
Matt,
if he decides to sign here, yes.
Matt, $2 million 2 years. Do you do it?
Honestly, okay, I'll
No,
go
it's a
somewhere
one.
else.
No, it's yes or no.
If Jonathan Drouin even contemplates the fact of returning as a Habs, as in itself, it means something. Okay? If he is contemplating just saying, you know what, I want to play in Montreal, I know
I
I've
don't
had a
think
rough
he
time, I
does.
want to come back, but I don't think he will. I don't
No.
think he will want to come back. I think he's past his time here and he will want to go elsewhere. But anyways, if he wants to come back and he's willing to accept, I think he's if he comes back, he's gonna accept under 2 million. Because
He's
even
gonna end
more
up
than
in
2
LA.
million, huh?
He's gonna end up in LA for
With
1 million.
Benjamin again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
1
right.
million. 1 million, and he's gonna freaking rip it up too. I
Yeah.
just know it.
No
Yeah.
matter where he is, if he finds good scorers on his line, he's gonna be fine because he's
Yeah.
a passer. He's a playmaker.
Jonathan Drouin is going to fucking Arizona with Austin Matthews. I don't give a shit.
I have
Going
a
to
feeling.
fucking Switzerland, boys.
I have a
Oh,
feeling
shit.
Austin Matthews. I think it would be brilliant if Toronto traded Austin Matthews next, like
I
over the
don't think
summer.
they have a choice. I don't think they have a choice. I think that's like it's a conspiracy theory, but I think that's why Dubas went all in this year. I think it's well known in that fucking organization that he is not willing to resign there and that he is going to be moved this summer for a king's ransom.
And I'm going to tell you, I hate the Leafs. I cannot stand them, but I think it's genius to move him because he's not even the best player on that team.
Man, look what happened to Colorado when they moved Duchesne finally, right?
Yeah.
That put them over the hump.
And I
Yeah.
remember blaming Sakic back
Yeah.
then for taking way too much time, and we just managed perfectly. I learned to fucking GMs know what fucking GMing is. We don't.
But
know
it's
shit.
crazy how
that's
good
reality, right?
Good GMs, they find a way. Like I'm talking about Joe Sakic here. I'm talking about Steve Eisenman, the Stamkos situation back in the days. Everybody thought
Marc
Stamkos was
Marc
going to
Bergevin
Toronto.
with the fucking Pacioretty situation. Boom.
It wasn't long ago that people didn't think Joe Sakic was worth the salt either, though,
True.
Yeah,
right?
it's because a rebuild takes longer than 5 years. That's the problem.
And it's not a direct line. Like sometimes, yeah, you draft certain players and they fit your like what your vision is for the future. But if your vision changes for the future, you move those players. That's what you should do.
Yeah. If you look,
I've had this debate with Pat last year. Where do you see the Habs next year?
Same place.
what?
I have to.
Yeah,
I
I
told
have to
you,
see.
Pat.
I
This.
have to see
Oh
the
my
summer first.
god, that's so cynical,
John is right on track.
No,
I mean,
we're
this
gonna
is
be
going to take a lot longer.
in the
I mean,
20-something
listen,
range.
if-
Trying,
if-
oh no.
Here's the problem, Pat. Is there? I honestly think there's something more to our injuries than anyone is letting on. This isn't normal. There's something wrong. There's no reason for this. It's not just bad luck. There's
No, I
something
agree.
off. And
that's-
if that
that's-
isn't addressed,
Go on.
and you combine that with the fact that this is going to take a lot longer than people think, with or without Bedard, when you combine those two things, I think we're looking at another year or two of subpar results, and that's just the way of it. You know, I mean,
subpar. John, you're a purist. You said it earlier, man. For me, the standard isn't winning the cup next year, but we won't be fucking fighting for the first pick next year again, right? We're talking.
It
we're not going to be
depends.
fighting for the
Oh,
playoffs.
man.
No way.
I
I'm
think
not
it
saying
depends on
playoffs.
December.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I'm talking in
Well,
the
that's what I'm saying.
22, 26 range would be okay with me. Just some improvement. Seeing kids jumping like
If
Gooley
we
did,
stay
like
healthy,
Jakai did.
yes. If we stay healthy,
I think that's
but this
that's a
isn't
factor.
normal.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're right, for
It
sure.
depends. To me, it depends if Hughes is successful in the trade market in the offseason.
Bingo.
And what he can bring to this team to make him. I mean, it's not even to say that they're in the playoffs, but to take him to that next level. You know what I mean? Like let's
Yeah.
start competing
Stage
for the playoffs.
2 or 3 of what this is, whatever we're going to call it, right?
Right,
Because
right.
like we said earlier, you're not a tanker until you contend. You climb the ladder, and you
Yeah.
meet teams that are on the decline.
And to say that Hughes needs to be successful, I mean, I think we need an upgrade in our goaltending. I think we need our defense is still young. If they can graduate to that, sophomore level and not have some sort of like some setback of some sort and just up their play just a little bit more, maybe we'll be a little more successful. And what John said, we need to be healthy.
Where do
He
you
needs to be healthy.
That's for
who
sure.
do you aim for in the goalie market? Because with just Montalvo and Allen, I think we don't cut it.
I want Allen gone. I
Okay.
want Allen gone. I want Montembeau to stay, and I think, I mean, I kind of got a chub for what's his face in Philadelphia.
Carter.
I mean,
Carter Hart,
if
yeah.
you look at his numbers, I
He's a
mean,
carry price
they're
number
not.
2. Sorry, I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, not quite Carey Price, but if you
Not
remember him in the playoffs against Montreal that year, he was fantastic. He's a fantastic goalie, and they had some pretty shitty defensemen over there in Philadelphia. He's got no support, but
I agree, man. But
you put
I
him
w-
on a team like this, and if you want to label him, I don't think he's like labeled as a bad goaltender, but if you want to tell, if the world or the Flyers want to tell the world that he's not what we expected him to be, and he carries that attitude into Montreal, fucking hell, bring him in,
I'm a
I'd
firm
love.
believer that in this situation, goaltending should be the last thing you address. I think
We
it should be the last, because what happens if you go and you get yourself an elite goaltender and then you don't make those
It
steps
should
that
be
you
the
need to?
cheapest. It should be
Well,
the
if we-
cheapest. It should be the cheapest issue you address. I'm meaning it shouldn't. You shouldn't throw a lot of money at it.
So
I think
here's
we
the
learned
thing.
our mistake.
I agree. I agree with John. I think the Habs are trying to build a well balanced team that's going to compete. With
No, we can't do that again. Yeah, we can't do it again. Carey Price, you love him or or hate him or however you feel about him. You can't. We can't do
And
that
at that
again.
point, I just patient. I wait to see if Montembeau can be that guy in a well balanced team, and if not, then I trade for him. With Brian on that, you need to address that the last. You're not going to draft your goalie nowadays. It's pretty rare, right? It's going to be some unexpected guy that makes it and becomes an NHLer, and it's just rarely.
Where do you guys think we'll be next year at this point?
Out of the playoffs, but in the 20s. So
26.
not
I really have to see the summer progress first. If we just play it back the way it is now, we're going to be in the same spot.
Yeah, we might
If
be
we-
better with Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? That's gonna help.
We could be better with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and to be honest, John brought it up earlier. That's the type of player that you're going to get to take the hometown discount. Honestly, he is. Like, you're not going to get Cole Caulfield, who was born in the States, to take a hometown discount. I think he's going to be your highest paid player next year.
Teams who are competitive year in, year out have players who have discount, who play at a discounted price. So take Tampa, for example, take Penguins, for example, take
John
Avalanche, for
Tavares.
example. All these teams, they have discounted players to make them to be able to go for a run.
Like John Tavares, right? Hometown
The
discount.
problem is we don't have a lot of leverage to offer. We don't have much we don't have a lot of selling points, and what I mean by that is we can't offer a no tax situation. We can't offer less media scrutiny. I mean, you have to, once again, I hate to be a
You have to sell
buzzkill,
the
but you
Canadian dollar.
you have to sell. No. You have to sell the Montreal market, and unfortunately, unfortunately, I think it's getting harder and harder to do that with this new generation of players. I think that a lot of them, there are a lot of them that love the idea of playing for the Montreal Canadiens, but as Brian said, I mean, Cole Caulfield, I don't for a second think that he doesn't love to play here. I'm sure he does. How much does he love to play for the Montreal Canadiens is the question. How much do you actually want to play here for the next 10 years and potentially win a Stanley Cup? If you're kind of like, if there's even a hint that there isn't as much enthusiasm as you'd want him to have, that's a problem. And that's our only selling point. Is our only selling point. We do not have any financial incentive to offer players here. We do not have any media incentive to offer players. You can't live your life, go to the beach like you can in LA without any problems. You just can't. You can't.
Right.
Philip Deneau is living it up down in LA right now. You can't do that in Montreal, and no one can in Montreal. It's a different ballgame altogether, and that's the issue. And look, for the longest time, and until we can get it off the books, the Habs couldn't do anything because of Carey Price. They couldn't. They were handcuffed financially, even with the money that they had. So I think what should happen going forward is if you're going to spend a lot of money on players, it should be upfront. I think that Montreal, the fan base, I think they'd be more willing to accept that going forward. If you're going to pay people big bucks, it has to be a goal scorer. It has to be people, players that are going to put people. Well, there'll always be fans in their seats, but that will make fans excited again. And I think that's where the money has to go, but it has to come at cost. And the issue, again, for me, and I think I accept this as a reality, and I'm hoping more fans do as well, is that Kent Hughes, and that's why he was brought in. I'm convinced of it more and more every day. You know, a lot of people are saying, why wasn't it this person or that person? Why was it a former agent? Because he knows how to talk to these people. He knows how to talk to these kids. And I think that that's what Gorton is hoping Kent will be able to do, is convince some of these players to want to play for the Montreal Canadiens. And I think he's our ace in the hole. It's a guy who has no other ties to hockey but through his agency experience and his experience talking to families. You need to convince these players that playing for the Montreal Canadiens is all that matters. And because there's nothing else, guys. There's nothing else. He cannot offer anything else. But what are you supposed to say? The media is going to be all over your ass. Sounds good, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. You know, we're not going to be able to offer you any kind of other financial incentives. How does that sound?
But John, the winter is so pretty.
You're gonna be an overnight celebrity. If you win here, you will be an overnight.
And if you lose here, ask Carey Price how it feels to lose here. The guy was
Scott
for 50%.
Gomez.
For 50% of his time in Montreal, maybe that's a little too extreme, but for a lot of his time in Montreal, he was booed. He went through hell here. Man. He admitted it. I mean, he acknowledged that sometimes he feel like
he was paid too much. If give him $6 million a year, it would be the different situation.
Oh, I don't think so, man. I think you're talking about two different things. You're talking about the celebrity status, which is absolutely true. If you are doing well and things are going great, you are an instant celebrity. Yeah. If you're not doing well, you're booed off the ice in your own rink. That's a problem. And, you know, I don't know how often that happens in other arenas.
No. Drouin would have been booed if he had a higher salary. The fact that he's not winning a higher salary, like a $6 million salary, he's not being booed.
Dude, I don't think there's a lot of respect for Drouin in this hockey market, and I'm the first to say that I'm not a big fan of his. I don't think there's much respect for Jonathan Drouin here.
Yes, there might not be a lack of there might be a lack of respect, but it's not shown on the ice versus Carey Price, who was booed. Like, we didn't give Drouin the Brisebois treatment that was given to him like back in the days, where with his $4 million
he's never playing, for God's sake, you know.
Yeah.
You know, if Drouin played more, he might.
After everything that happened, are we pussyfooting around a little bit with Drouin as well? You know what I mean? Like, do people not boo him because of what he came out to say he was struggling with? It's a possibility.
Yeah.
I know you're still Canadian, right?
Guys, my phone is dying. I'll have to let you go, but I had to jump in, had to say hi, had to say shout out to most of you guys. And thanks, we'll have to get you on another pod soon.
Hey, Matt.
Sounds good.
It was nice to get some extra Abibi on the pod.
Love you guys.
Ciao, Matt. Love
See you, buddy.
Man. You good? Do I need to kick you out of here, man?
Guys, I'm going to have to probably get going soon. Yeah, but if you had one more question that you wanted to fire off, go ahead. I mean, I'm more than willing to entertain one more. I don't know if you had one on the docket. I just thought I'd put it out there.
Right out. The best surprise in this season, like the best positive surprise in this season.
I'm a big fan of coaches that are colorful, that are obviously having a good impact on their team. For the longest time, and I still do, there's still a part of me, I liked Michel Therrien. I thought he got the best out of a really shitty team, and he did it for quite a few number of years. I think of all the coaches we had, he absolutely, without doubt, factually was the most successful. Between Julien and Ducharme, I mean, and there's no question, he was the more successful of the three. And he got more out of much lesser teams. I'm a big fan of coaching across the board, like whatever sport it is. I'm naturally kind of drawn to them, and the more colorful they are, the more I like them. I love Tortorella, for example, and I kind of like Daryl Sutter a lot too. I love Marty St. Louis. I like his vibe. I like the fact that he's so close to the players, and he's always chatting with them, and he's very sort of he's a lot more he's not very expressive, but he's a lot more expressive than his colleagues. You know what I mean? Like hockey coaches are generally very stiff and they just don't really do anything. And I don't know what the hell they're doing standing there to begin with. But he seems to be a bit more engaged. And I think he's getting the best out of a lot of players despite the circumstances. I really do. I mean, if he's able to motivate players to do well in little areas, as Monsieur mentioned, in a losing season like this, you got to tip your hat to that. So I think that's, for me, the biggest surprise,
Great
especially
answer,
for a
man.
coach with no experience, right?
Great answer. Mo, what do
For
you
me,
think?
for me, it's well, everything John said, but at the same time that you're seeing the team fight in every single game, not giving up, and whether it's like that Pittsburgh game, fuck, like I just felt so great after that game. You know, like just that the team just bounces back and bounces back and bounces back and is willing to sacrifice. Like they're literally getting nothing out of this season, and willing to sacrifice their bodies and getting peppered with shots and I mean, if he can build that sort of culture in this club with AHL guys, that he's probably saying, you know, if your future is not with this club and you play that way, chances are somebody else is going to find worth in you. You know, like find you, you know, want to sign you and bring you into their club. So you do what I tell you, and you're going to play in this league. The other thing that I absolutely love about this team is I don't know who it was that tweeted. There was I don't know 10 guys on the ice and 10 coaches on the ice, and every coach was working with one guy. And I think the Habs are finally capitalizing on that extra advantage that they have and investing money into non-cap related things that they can do, and to see that you have 10 coaches on the ice or whatever their roles are, maybe a conditioning coach or something like that, but at least there's it's a one-on-one relationship. And I mean, Brian, you have kids, and you know your kids are probably in a class, knowing this country, probably in a class of 30 kids, and kids need attention, right? And you send them to a private school, and it's like, you know, one teacher to 5 kids or 10 kids. It's completely different. And if that teacher can give all their attention to one student, that student can focus on what they need to do and not be like this collective idea that, you know, everybody has to do what the coach is saying, you know, the forwards need to do. And it's just they're really capitalizing on those non-cap related investments that they can make into the team. The question that remains, are they doing that in the scouting? Are they doing that, you know, in the development area behind the actual club? Like what's going on there? And if they can invest money there, invest money that does not go against the cap, and it doesn't go against the cap, and they can actually, you know, develop their players and coach them the way they are to play the way they are right now, then we might get through this a lot quicker than most teams. Who knows? But we also need to be active in the off season as well. But to me, that's what stands out. And it was just one tweet that I saw, and I'm just like, that's amazing that we have 10 coaches on the ice with 10 players. I don't even know if that's the number, but I mean, that's a pretty good investment, you know?
Great answers, boys. For me, it's the blue line. We all thought it was going to be a dumpster fire all year. 5 rookies or 4 rookies to start the season. We've got rookies coming from Laval that are pushing like even veterans possibility out this summer. Like I said, we expected a dumpster fire, and they turned out to be the bright spot, and that's my bright spot for this year.
Yeah.
I have to agree,
Guys,
man.
I'm gonna have to get going. I'm sorry, but
this is
thank
anyway.
you so much. Honestly, it was a blast. It was great to meet you guys finally.
Yeah, absolutely flattered to have you on, John and Mo. From are we going to see you guys on the pod again, like of your own? Is that something?
Whenever I don't know about that.
Are you retired officially? On the spot like that.
We'll do an annual special on New Year's Eve every year or something like that.
Nice. Thanks for coming on, guys. It was awesome.
Come drop in when we do our special shows.